Hello, welcome to Level Reviews. I'm going to be talking about the closed beta, which finished recently. So it's finally over, and the question I found myself asking now is, what do I play? Where do I go if I want to get that sort of tense, visceral dueling where my opponent and I really like trying to figure each other out, staring each other down across a battlefield, daring each other to make the next move? Well, the totally honest answer is nowhere. I can't go anywhere in the gaming world to get an experience quite like For Honor. I mean, Mount & Blade, which you might not have even heard of, has a better world with deep trade and RPG elements, but no other melee-based game puts you that close to the actual fight or gives you such a feeling of control over your character. It never really gets old running through a war-torn battlefield. You can cut down lesser NPCs with just absolute fluid grace. The animations are absolutely on point, especially when you're playing as like the samurai, the Orochi samurai, or like a Viking raider. And then you sort of see an enemy player approaching the carnage, locking onto them, and the camera zooms in from a sort of traditional hack and slash view to a over the shoulder, very like personal perspective. So you and the enemy prepare your stances. All the other NPCs sort of back away, and they're fully aware that they're absolutely no match for what's about to go down. So you start circling each other. Your weapons and frankly your controller are gripped firmly as you scope one another out. They make the first move with like a big overhead strike, and you dodge to the left, stab, catch them off guard. You get a little bit overconfident, so you lunge forward. You get stopped by a guard break. You get stunned. You feel a massive swing of an axe take away half your health, just because you made a mistake. So you roll away, a little bit Dark Souls style, only to see a wall of spikes to your right. So you think fast, dodge the angry Viking, light attack, swift guard break, and then a throw, and you've thrown them into a wall of spikes and you've won. And that really is how quickly things can change in For Honor, and you're really rewarded for using your environment and vast array of abilities and individual skills. It's superbly well balanced. Each class is able to defeat any other if you know how. So if you lose 90% of the time, it's because you deserve to lose. You didn't dodge fast enough, you didn't block in the right direction, or use the right tactic against that particular enemy. They all have strengths and weaknesses. For example, I love to play as the sneaky, fast peacekeeping knight, and I play very well against most opponents in the 1v1 duel mode as that character. However, a friend of mine, he loves to use the big warden with the two-handed sword, and try as hard as I can. I just could not beat him in a one-on-one match. He just absolutely slaughtered me. And I've beat a lot of wardens playing online during my time with the beta, where I just couldn't beat him, and that's part of what really makes the game great. It's a very skillful game. So if we break it down, we'll start with graphics, design and animation. And let's just get one thing out of the way before I start. Gameplay is absolutely king in For Honor. If this game had last gen level graphics but nothing else changed, it'd still be hugely enjoyable. It's not the best looking game out there by any stretch, but it certainly isn't a bad looking game either. Some love has clearly gone into the design of the classes, the weapons and the armour, and each character looks and feels unique. The sword blades have like a reflective shine to them, and everything is customizable, but I'll touch more on that later. The animation is absolutely one of the best parts of the game. It's hugely satisfying to slaughter NPCs, just to watch the animations and various characters. Whether it's like rebounding back off one enemy and rolling into a stab, or crushing the skull with a flail and then just kicking a limp body off the end of your mace. It's really satisfying. It's quite grotesquely beautiful in a way. So the 1v1 combat itself against enemy players has really good finishes. They don't quite match the bloodshed of something like Mortal Kombat, but yeah, it's definitely smooth and stylish. One thing that probably could be improved is the actual amount of finishes available. Can get a little bit repetitive seeing the same ones over and over. But that's more of a gameplay qualm than with the animations themselves. The maps look great visually, and arrows are flying overhead, and you get rubble from the castle walls littering the place. It's really cool, and they feature a lot of death traps and seasons and weather for each one as well. However, they all kind of follow a pretty similar pattern, and I'm hoping to maybe see a little bit more variety in the actual layout in the full game. Some small issues is I'm not a fan of the flashy glowing effects for certain moves. I feel this kind of takes away from the gritty aesthetic and belongs in something more like Dynasty Warriors, but I do understand the need for these effects as it makes it easier to see what's coming and time your reactions as well. Onto the gameplay then. It should really come as no surprise that a game so focused on its combat system should have satisfying gameplay, and for the most part, For Honor absolutely excels in this area. The combat's smooth and the executions are fun to pull off, if not slightly repetitive like I mentioned before. The blocking and striking mechanic puts you in total control of your character, so you use one stick to control movement and the other control where you attack and defend. Timing, dodging and countering, throwing, knowing your combos, strengths and weaknesses as your chosen character are all absolutely vital to survival. So outsmarting your opponent always brings a real feeling of accomplishment, basically just because of how the game plays. Button mashing will very rarely grant you any victory. If you spam one type of attack, your opponent will adapt to your strategy and counter it. No class feels overpowered in the beta, and that's an excellent sign for the full release in such a PvP centric game. The HUD doesn't really feel intrusive despite the requirements for a block and attack direction indicator, and the quick chat options are simple and effective, and it's also pretty cool to be able to mark a beacon at any point so you can rally your team precisely and easily. There are some small issues that popped up at times, but nothing that ever really made me want to stop playing or significantly impacted my enjoyment. Occasionally you do get ganged up on in the bigger 4v4 mode, and I know it's to be expected in a multiplayer game. However, it is particularly annoying when you're in the middle of an epic duel and some huge knight with a flail comes from the side and just boots you off a cliff. The developers have put a little bit of thought into this scenario and made it so you can damage teammates if you're careless with your strikes, but in the long run it does very little to actually prevent it from happening. And really it's more just the reality of the mode than anything else. It's just something you're going to have to accept. In its beta phase, it feels as though there are a slight lack of modes. Those that are currently in the game are great. There is a duel, which is 1v1, brawl, which is 2v2, and domination, which is 4v4 with capture the objective points as well. And they all serve the purpose. However, I feel it would benefit greatly from capture the flag and King of the Hill, and I'm sure there are many other modes that would fit the genre. So since writing the review, I have actually found out that there are going to be more modes in the full game. There's going to be tournaments as well, which sounds really interesting. That is something I can definitely get behind in a game like this. I would love to take part in some For Honor tournaments. Bonus points for that. Another thing I had a slight problem with is something called Revenge Mode. This is another feature designed to help players who find themselves facing multiple opponents. Now, the basic principle is that when you're taking a lot of damage or you're blocking from multiple directions, you fill something called the Revenge Meter, which you can activate to buff your attack and defense for a short time. Now, you're probably thinking, well, you've just been complaining about being ganged up on, and yeah, I did. However, at times it did feel that Revenge Mode felt like a cheap get-out-of-jail free card for people who simply play poorly. Or didn't work with the team very well. So there are enemies you could be fighting against, and your teammates have joined in, and they're moments away from a pretty well-deserved death, and then they simply just have to tap Y or triangle and blast their way out of a really bad situation. And that felt really unfair when many times I had to use like cunning and skill to get myself out of a similar situation due to my revenge meter filling up too slowly. One example is when I rolled to escape two enemies and kicked one of them off a cliff to even the odds. This method of using my wits felt a lot more rewarding than just pressing one button to even the odds. So I really feel if you get yourself into a bad situation, you should get yourself out of it with all the skills and tactics that are available, rather than sort of a God mode button, if you like. So the customization and class system, again, this is an area where For Honor absolutely shines. You can customize any of the 9 in the beta, 12 in the final game, with another 6 being added on post-launch. You can customize any of those classes to your liking, both visually and in terms of skills and stats as well. So this will range from simply equipping a piece of gear to increase stamina or sprint speed, to swapping out the aesthetic of one axe that you love with the look of another. So let's say, for example, you have to spend a small portion of steel, which is the in-game currency. So let's say, for example, I unlock an axe, and it looks really cool and I like the design, but the stats aren't really to my liking. But in my inventory I've got another axe which has got perfect stats for what I need for my build, but it doesn't really look very nice. I can pay to swap the aesthetic of one onto the other, so I can keep the stats and the aesthetic, which is a really cool feature. I think that's great. My loadout was heavily focused on sprint speed, stamina regeneration, and throw distance, which is like the distance I can throw an enemy. rather than actual projectiles, because there are throwable projectiles and the use of bows, but they're almost like kill streaks, if you like. As your character levels up, you can equip new abilities, so you can call in catapult shots, boost your healing rate, that kind of stuff. They are very similar to kill streaks. So yeah, mine was very much a sneaky sort of assassin style class. It was the Peacekeeper mostly, which is part of the Knights faction. And then my friend, as I mentioned before, he played as the strong defensive tank character with a two-handed sword. And it's great to have that kind of expression in a PvP game that isn't just another shooter as well. It's nice to be able to really make your own character. You can do all kinds with their armor as well. You can design their logo. I'll touch more on that in a second. I am pleased to mention that the steel, which is the currency, is earned in game and through challenges at this point. But whether that becomes a microtransaction based feature in the full game remains to be seen. I hope it stays as an earnable currency, but only because I know that I will probably spend far too much money on it if it is a microtransaction, because some of the unlockables are really cool. So the level of customization is amazing. For example, rather than simply getting like a new set of armor or an outfit, you can unlock new parts for each section, which include the arms, body, head, and your weapon. And the really cool part about customizing your weapon is it's actually 3 individual pieces. So if it's a two-handed sword, you get the blade, the handle and pommel, and then the guard as well. And you can unlock a different part for each section, and you can really make your weapon your own. It might look different from everybody else's. It's a really cool part of the game. So rather than just unlocking a new sword, you can actually create your own, so to speak. On top of that, you can change the colour schemes, textures, even the materials, so you can choose to make your armour out of sort of like a brass material, steel, iron, and so on, so you can make it look different. And like I said before, you can create your own crest as well, which you can put on your character's armour. So it's pretty cool. That's bonus points really, because clan players are going to absolutely love that. You will be able to create your own clan banner and clan emblem and show that off to other people in the game. So to summarise, I do want to wrap this up a bit quickly. The positives are satisfying and rewarding gameplay, really deep customization, absolutely stunning animations, and it delivers something genuinely fresh and skill-based to the multiplayer genre, which I don't think we've seen in a while. Some slight negatives, which is more just nitpicking really. The revenge mode feels a little bit overpowered, but maybe that's just me. It needs a few more modes, but they are going to be added anyway. The finishes can be a little bit repetitive. I know you can unlock one new one for every character, but it would be nice to see that fleshed out a little bit. And then the map design, while visually great, and you know, it looks awesome to see the different weather and day and night cycles in them, they need a little bit more variety in terms of layout, but I know there are going to be more maps post launch as well, so that'll be nice to see. So this was my first review, so I'm open to all feedback. Was a little bit too long, not enough detail, you know, just let me know your thoughts, and I can't wait to get my hands back on the game, and hope to see you all on it in February.